Hello and welcome to Bubbles and Breakdowns, a space designed for you to show up as your beautifully imperfect self, where we dive into the good, the bad, and the bubbly. I'm Ashley.
I'm Katrina.
And I'm Lauren.
And here we are, guys, as promised, part two.
We're going to two-parter.
A two-parter. We're going to go deeper on our nervous system, but not only as it relates to our physical health and recovery when we have an injury or we're experiencing pain or discomfort, but also Dr. Lauren DeCicco is going to give us some great tips of how we can integrate regulation into our day-to-day lives. Now, if you missed part one of this episode, I encourage all of you just to pause this one, go back an episode and get some really grounding information, some foundational information on regulation, on dysregulation, and how important our nervous system is. So thank you again for being here, and we're so excited to dive in a little bit deeper.
Yes, thank you.
So now thinking about, you're a doctor of physical therapy, right? And talk to me about what's going on in someone's body when they're in this sympathetic space that we talked about earlier, this fight or flight. What's going on in their body and what's inhibiting them from healing? Like, let's say I've got a bad knee and it just won't get better, and I've got a bad neck and you've got all these symptoms going on. What's getting in the way and why can't I heal? Because my nervous system isn't in the right place.
So if we look at traditional care, it's really tissue and isolated to the source of the injury. They might kind of look at things like biomechanics and where you're having excessive amounts of force on a tissue or things like that. Your behavior, your biomechanics.
Just like very physical mobility, how you're moving things.
How you're moving, what does the joint look like, where are you restricted in the tissue, and that is all definitely applicable. But if we scale it back, if we take like a wider lens view at this, the state of your nervous system, if you are stuck in excessive states of survival, you are driving pain and inflammation and tissue tension in your body as well. So if I go and just treat the tissue, if I were to just take your knee and start doing all the modalities to the knee to help the restrictions, the decreased range of motion and things like that, it's going to get better. But the speed at which it gets better, the amount it gets better, is going to be really dependent on the state of your body. So if you're stuck in survival, you're driving excessive amounts of inflammatory responses. You're pro-inflammatory. Your body actually thinks it's under attack. So if you look at it at a cellular level, just like your body starts to armor itself when it doesn't feel safe, at a cellular level, those cells shut the doors too. They armor themselves. So good stuff's not getting in and bad stuff's not getting out. The cells aren't migrating to the tissue that needs to heal. Our lymphatic system, which detoxes our body and helps keep our fluids nice and clean and clear, it's going to not be as effective because you have increased tissue tension in your body. So all of the fluids, your blood flow, your lymphatic fluids, are not getting to where they need to go or leaving the area to remove the things it needs to remove.
So I want to pause on this because what came to my mind about even just the words tissue tension, if I have a painful joint or a painful part of my body and my tissue is experiencing tension, that tells me tightness. It tells me like it's not going to be as responsive. Is that a fair interpretation of what's happening when you have this tissue tension going on, this protective kind of response that your body's in?
Right. And that's justified because you just had a mechanical issue in a joint. So you're going to have pain receptors that are activated and tell the brain, hey, something's going on here. I'm sending a message. I'm signaling to you that you need to actually protect this area and keep me safe. But if we do that excessively and we don't allow the fluids and the healing cells to get to that area to heal the tissue and help transition the body back into safety so that we can get what we need there, then you are going to start developing chronic issues. So I see people that maybe twisted their knee or did something to themselves long, long, long ago, and they're still dealing with the same issue. Or I'll see people that have multiple body parts involved, where maybe bilateral knees, bilateral shoulders, a neck issue, just random stuff going on all over their body. That tells me that their body's been pumping more of an inflammatory process for a longer period of time than someone who maybe just like twisted their ankle over the weekend. So the more chronic and the more body parts involved, typically the longer we've been stuck in survival.
So thinking about holistic, right? That's a big part and focus of your practice. And when I know that the word holistic means comprehensive, it looks at all aspects. How much would be, like, if you were to look, okay, we've got this nervous system regulation, this kind of like meditative place. You want people to find this type of relaxation. Do you also consider things like foods and what they're ingesting? Is that part of your approach as well to kind of help with the anti-inflammatory level setting of their body?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not a nutritionist in that side of it, but when I start with people, I do a comprehensive evaluation of them. And one of the questions I ask is, what does your nutrition look like? What do you like to eat? And when do you like to eat? Are we eating throughout the day? Are we feeding ourselves? Or are we sending signals of survival?
Yeah, like starve in the morning and then, eat a ton of stuff before
and
bed.
That all depends on the person, because, there are benefits to fasting and intermittent fasting. But if you're somebody who's had a chronically overwhelmed nervous system for a long period of time, we might need to scale that back, reintegrate safety through food and things that nourish us, environments that nourish us, sunlight, getting our sleep back on track. Not, even like removing the people we're around if we can't tolerate it in that moment. That doesn't mean it's forever. It's just, I like to do almost like a full reset of people's nervous system in the very beginning so that nothing is signaling danger to them.
How long does a reset usually take? I'm sure it's different per person based on those stressors, but is it, I'm trying to process this for my own life too, right? Like, what does that look like?
It depends for everybody. So usually people are regulated within 10 minutes of starting the session. Usually just walking through the door, they feel a shift. But as soon as they start doing some different modalities, signaling and activating their vagus nerve, for example, they shift right into that regulated state. How long it holds for is all dependent on what their exposure to their environment is, what their individual sensitivity of their nervous system is. We all have different nervous systems. We are born with different levels of sensitivity. Honestly, it's a gift to be a highly sensitive person, but you have...
That's the problem, Miss Sensi.
I know. My friends call me Sensi.
Yeah.
So here we go.
It's a gift. It's a gift because your intuition and knowledge of your internal and external environment is so heightened. But if it gets completely overloaded, it's going to shut down a lot faster.
Totally. And I see that probably not trying to be not daily, but I just think of, the end of the night where you have like, my phone is talking to me. The TV is on. I'm making dinner. Oh my gosh. And I just remember so much as like with the kids, like, oh, you don't want to give them too much light sensitivity because they'll be overstimulated. So I'm always like, I'm going to play 20 minutes. But I'm like, that's me too. I get overstimulated in a heartbeat.
Yeah. And that's also, I noticed this difference between myself and my husband is that I am the list keeper of all the things. And I'm constantly thinking about what presents we need to get. What are we eating for dinner? Da, 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 da. And like this whole concept of my mental load is higher. Therefore, my resilience tends to be lower in moments that I should be able to kind of like not let it bother me. I am in this heightened state because I'm constantly thinking and constantly stimulating myself because it's not even the lights. It's not even the noise. It's not even the people. It's like my internal stimulation is heightened.
Well, and I think that's just
wild that it's all coming from your head.
I know.
It's all coming from what you're thinking. It's all coming from what you're feeling.
You're giving yourself that.
Right.
But what is it that's underlying that makes you believe that you should do that? So it really is coming from some sort of hardwired belief system that probably came from early childhood or even generationally that made us believe that we must have these lists. We must have these to-dos.
I'll tell you what mine is. I have to be responsible because no one else is going to be responsible. Like, I really believe, I'm really hardwired to believe that if I don't do it, no one else is going to do it. And these are core, like, set systems and beliefs that I rely on. And it has made me, like, overly independent. And I don't know if that resonates with others who are listening, but we've talked a lot about in our toxic traits episode around our controlling nature and, our anxiety. And a lot of that we believe does come from a sense of insecurity, whether it was within our environment or our relationships.
So that lack of safety, right, that we've been talking about, that's so paramount.
So hyper independence or asserting control over something is a strategy to try to create a sense of support and safety within your system. So your system is craving stability, certainty, safety, grounding. You're trying to create that externally, where you really need to create it internally for yourself. So if we want to scale this now, that's a really, really great example of systems that are chronically turned on, overwhelmed, overstimulated. So now let's look at what that does at a cellular level. When you're stuck in that fight or flight all of the time, you're driving increased tissue tension, which is then decreasing your body's ability to get the proper fluids to where it needs to go to heal things and flush things out. It's driving inflammation, and even your immune system, your hormones, and your gut health are all attached to this as well.
So let's reprogram this. So I love this information because this information can be so paramount for us thinking about stress differently.
And
we're not turning off our stress, Ashley. Like, think of all of these things that are
I know,
happening.
but also I just think, again, you have to hear someone say it in such an intelligent, beautiful way to say, like, we're trying to make ourselves safe, but we are not doing it the right way. Right?
What you want to do is, the stress is going to be there.
Right.
There is no world where stress is not going to be there.
But like you said, that can be a good thing too. That is.
It's not a bad thing at
Yeah.
all. It's your relationship with stress.
Right. How do you respond
It's your
to
perception to stress. And that is what you rewire. It is not, I mean, yeah, there's certain things, like if you're working in a toxic job, or you're exposed to a toxic person, or you're in a toxic relationship or something like that, I'm not encouraging that you stay. I mean, if you have the ability to leave certain things that are not aligned with yourself, then we definitely need to act appropriately with that. But there's also environments and situations where you can't leave them. You're still going to be exposed to them. There's a lot of people with mold toxicity, for example. They can't just move out of their house. Some people can't afford to do that. But there are people that can heal from it when they change their internal physiology in relationship to that exposure of that environment.
And what I love is this is so empowering to every person who's listening, because at the end of the day, if we know, well, first of all, it's like you kind of take the ding on the chest of being like, oh, I'm doing this to me. Wah, wah, wah.
Self-sabotage.
I like to play the game. What did I bring to the party? Because and it's not to create blame on yourself.
No.
It is to give the power back to yourself.
Yes, take it back.
If we put on everything else, we then no longer have power to change anything.
Totally. And I love the power, right? We've talked about that before too. Like
Well, because we're controlling.
Power is different than control, I would argue.
I'm kidding.
But I think there's something so, again, lack of a better word, powerful in knowing you own that power, because it enables you to make decisions for yourself to get you to where you want to be. I think because just all these examples we've given is just like, go. We're not stopping and thinking intuitively or ways, how do we help ourselves? So I'd love to kind of take this to the next level of what are steps that we can do today to regulate?
Or even what do you do?
Yes.
What do I do?
Yeah, I think everyone would love to hear that.
I think the most important thing is having self-awareness, but that is difficult when you've had this going on for a really long period of time. It's really hard to feel the shifts because we're just on all the time. And then usually the shift comes with like an injury, or like your body's screaming at you, oh, now I have just got diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, or I have gut issues. So what we want to do is we want to start helping the nervous system balance itself back out physiologically. So one of the best tools to do that is vagus nerve activation. And you're giving yourself an external stimulus to your body to signal safety into the body. And the more you practice doing this, the more your body can flex on and off, and the more you are in tune with those subtle signals instead of just being on all the time. So those two things, the awareness, but then also your body's ability to flex on and off, they kind of have to go together if you've been chronically stressed or in survival for a really long time. So there's really simple ways to activate your vagus nerve. Obviously, in my clinic, I use some more advanced techniques. I use a vagus nerve stimulator, which gives an electrical impulse to the nerve because nerves run off of electricity. So if we give it an electrical impulse, it activates the nerve with a lot of intensity and very rapidly. So I'll see people be in survival, and literally shift within 2 minutes to this like center. They're like smiling and laughing with me and chatting. Like someone could come in and they're not even looking at me, or people come in, they're agitated and like real sassy. And now this is another really great part about this. Instead of me being like, what's this person's problem with me? I'm just like, yeah, they're dysregulated.
Right.
You don't make it about you.
It's not, it's almost not even their personality anymore. It's like a lot of us think our personalities are shaped a certain way, but when you go into a completely different state of your nervous system, you access parts of yourself that are wild compared to
you're like, I swear I'm not that mean of
no,
a person. I said what I said, but I didn't mean it. Right.
This is just like, I like, am I looking in a mirror when I'm hearing all this? Just because I think too, getting, we're in our 40s now, going through these hormonal shifts. There's some times where I haven't felt like myself, where I literally
call it an out of body experience.
Yes, where I'm like this. I know who I am, and I'm seeing what I'm doing or saying, and I'm like, what is happening? And it makes all the sense in the world.
Well, and I would have to imagine this relation with women. You mentioned in the first episode of how this really affects women more than men. Do hormones play a role in that? Like, tell me more about why it affects women more.
Well, your hormones dictate all of the different processes in your body and how different neurotransmitters are really released and things like that. So like your serotonin, for example, is going to be really dependent on where you're at in your cycle.
And that's like your happy, lovey feeling.
Yeah. So like if you're taking medication for like anxiety and depression, a lot of it is to help the serotonin
production
function better in your system. So there's different phases of our cycle where serotonin levels dip and things like that. There's more sympathetic response in women in general. We have a more sensitive sympathetic response than men. And again, I think that's intentional. I think that it was actually supposed to be a gift, but we don't live in a world where it fits very well sometimes for us. So, but yeah, like changes with like perimenopause and menopause are driving increased sympathetic dominance, which would be that fight or flight or being always on all of the time. But then in the cycle of things, being on all of the time starts to affect our stress hormones, our cortisol release, which then starts to affect our other hormones. And then we're just stuck in this vicious cycle. So when we're stuck in cycles like that, we just have to interrupt the cycle somewhere. And one way to do that would be to start addressing your nervous system. I think that's the easiest, most powerful tool that you could do is start to regulate your nervous system. So if we go in, like in my office, like I said, I use a more powerful tool. I do some other techniques. I use co-regulation, my nervous system with the other person's nervous system to help shift them into safety. And then I use, some manipulation to the body as well.
Yeah, I've seen that in your practice where there's certain points. It's almost like a reflexology type of practice where you're touching certain points maybe on their stomach or that kind of activates your nervous system in a positive way.
We start to hold certain stress patterns. Like a lot of people will have TMJ issues and jaw issues because our jaw muscles and our deep hip flexors, our psoas muscle, are typically our first responders to stress, to activating that fight or flight. Because instinctually, when we talk about fight flight, we're getting ready to fight or flee from a perceived threat. So we have to activate certain musculature, and it's going to be our hip flexors, but then it's going to also be our jaw, because prehistorically, like, we were clenching our jaw to make sure that, all of our vital things are in the front of our body. So we
protect ourselves,
brace and lock down. It's a primitive locking down protective mechanism. So I go into their soft tissue structures and help release those tissue tension patterns to help the brain say, okay, I'm actually okay. I'm
sending
safe.
your brain a signal from your body. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think about the vagus nerve, and I'm going to see if this makes sense too, is that I was in a coaching group and we would always start the call with a lot of like deep back throat like that sound, and we would do it a number of times. We take 3 deep breaths and we do it because it's meant to stimulate the vagus nerve. And then additionally, that would not only like take us down, but it would make us very open, and it would make us very receptive to kind of what was going to be shared, because it's like it just automatically. But I'm also going to say I experience this when I'm singing, like in my car. And again, it's like that vocalization, maybe, right? doctor? Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
kind of stimulating this and maybe opening us up. So it's like, maybe you're not a person, or maybe you're not like, I'm going to get this vagus nerve, you know, stimulator tool because I can't afford it. Or maybe you just like, some of this doesn't work, but I mean, can singing
Yeah.
truly?
So like, obviously this is a clinical tool that I'm using. I have clients that get it and it's great. It's really, really impactful, but it's not necessarily accessible for everyone. And it's not necessary because we can hum, we can vibrate. So a lot of times I'll have people just get a way less expensive tool, a ball that vibrates, and use vibration over the different points of their nervous system. I've even put tape on people. So I take kinesiology tape and I put it right over the path of the vagus nerve, and it's so superficial, meaning close to the surface of the skin and sensitive, that the tape will start to activate the nerve. And then they wear it all day long, so their nerve is just kind of there and knowing what it's supposed to do, because it's being reminded it's supposed to kick in and balance you back out.
Can you overstimulate that nerve?
Well, you'll see, like, I've had people that have had really, really complex histories of trauma, and in those situations, we go in very carefully. When the nerve is overactive, that's where you get what's called vasovagal. So people get like lightheaded, dizzy, pass out.
Wow.
So that's still an imbalance of the activation of the nerve, but it's overworking.
Right.
And it's kicking in too much and dropping you way down. And so with those people, I go so lightly. It might just be like a tuning fork over the path of the vagus nerve, or a light vibration, or a little bit of taping. But I don't do, you know, like they can't even have that on the stimulator, the electrical stimulation on their neck. But what you said, that deep, so that's a really good technique too, taking a big breath in and a long exhalation. When you exhale longer than your inhalation, you're dropping into parasympathetic to balance yourself out, but adding a little vibration, like a deep hum, a long exhalation with that, will activate your vagus nerve and put you in a parasympathetic.
Yeah, and I've heard about like the box breathing, or there's other techniques where it's like breathe in for 2, hold for 3, let out for 5, right? So it's kind of like timing your breath. So you do a rapid inhale, hold for 3, push it out as long as you can, to your point, because, you know, that exhalation is what decompresses our body. And I think we all can experience that. And even, you know, I've tried to incorporate this with parenting. It's like, and I think not even tried to, sometimes just had to, like, I got to go to the other room. I got to take a few breaths, you know? I think that's just such a, like we were talking about, maybe like these snackable ways for people to incorporate regulation into their day to day. It's like, if we can just, you don't need these fancy tools, to your point. You have your breath, you have your body, and all you need to do is check in with yourself. Say what's going on in here, and then go in the other room and take those breaths. I mean, I think we can all do that.
Or sing in the shower.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So usually when I start people, I like them to do every morning some sort of self-regulation or vagus nerve activation, self-soothing, integrate safety, so that the hardest, most challenging time to do this is in the moment.
Oh, I know.
So practicing it every single morning as a daily routine starts to hardwire that resource back into your system and that tool as accessible. So however you want to activate that vagus nerve every morning, I usually say 5 to 10 minutes. So I'll use either vibration. I'll even use ice. So
I saw that on your practice as well.
I freeze a chunk of ice, and I use that cold. That temperature change is a shock to the nerve. It's activating the nerve. So just different varying ways to do it, because our body gets used to doing the same stimulus all the time as well. So I'll either use my vagus nerve stimulator, which is the electrical impulse, breathing. I will do temperature change or vibration. And then I'll also usually do a lymphatic routine as well, because those two things are just so closely tied together. And it's like 5 minutes, or you can do it in your car. You don't have to be like, oh my God, I got to do all these things before I even get started for the day. But another key is like, give yourself some space before the chaos starts in the morning. So many people start their activation into their survival response first thing in the morning, because they're getting up with the chaos. And I know we're exhausted, but like, even if it's 10 minutes before everything, like, you just to get your system in a nice neutral zone, so you have a lot more space in your bucket, a lot more capacity to handle what the stress brings for the day.
Like taking out your nervous system garbage.
Totally. And
like, you have to empty your trash before you can start filling it up with your day. And I love that, because all of us go into our days. I mean, many of us, at least I do. Ashley, I think you do too. You wake up and you're in go mode.
I wake up to a crying child every day. But I think also, like, who wants to start their day off bad? Nobody.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there's 5 minutes. Like, that's really empowering to me, because I can do 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So then when you start to do that, then your system will learn to naturally activate when it's supposed to. Now, the most powerful tool is self-regulation related to a moment of a stressor or a trigger. So if you're able to, using self-regulation as close to a trigger as possible. So it's really good for things that trigger you already. Because you can prepare
yesterday.
You can prepare yourself. So if you're like, okay, there's this person that I know always like really gets me.
Yep.
Really activated. I don't have a choice. I have to have a meeting with them. So ahead of time, doing some of that breathing or vagus nerve activation so that your system is already balanced. You're not pre-activated before exposure. You're already regulated. You go in. I'm sure you might, in the first few times, get dysregulated. And then as soon as you get done, you self-regulate again. So you're starting at a baseline. You flex on, and then you're helping yourself flex back off. Look at that flexibility and resilience you just trained your system to do. So it's about training the on and off more so than just never having the on. That's how you rewire your relationship with stress.
I love it, because it makes complete sense. You think about if you're a long distance runner, like I like to run a lot. And if I don't run for a long time, like I lose the ability to run, and I have to like build that muscle. And so what you are describing and the importance of incorporating consistently is that you're auto programming this now versus like you're going to have to force program in the beginning. You're going to have to intentionally carve out the time. You're going to have to check yourself. But then over time, what a beautiful thing that our bodies then learn to associate those situations or people or scenarios that we've felt for so long, and then automatically can start using these tools that you're teaching itself. I mean, our bodies are incredible, and if we use them for us instead of against us, like, this is the beauty of changing how it feels to experience our everyday lives.
Well, and I think about it too is we're being real. We realize we don't want to say, well, of course we want to try to lower our stress if we can, but we live in a stressful world, right? Like you said that.
And not all stress is bad.
Right. But also we're being real around, maybe you can't take all those stressors away, but you can learn tools to regulate yourself in those environments to thrive.
Exactly.
To succeed, to be able to switch that light off when you're done. And I think there's so many people that they just can't do that. They can't.
And what would you, Lauren, I mean, from your experience, you went through a difficult time that's kind of led you into becoming this expert that you are. I mean, I love that about you, in the way that like you took something difficult, you made yourself educated, and then you also are embodying these techniques that have served your life. But what would you say to someone listening who might be in this place right now? Like, they might be sitting there feeling overwhelmed every day, feeling burnt out. Maybe they are disengaged from connection. Maybe they are having a very difficult time being motivated. What would you say to them? Maybe they don't have access to someone like yourself as a holistic PT. What would you tell them?
Yeah. So, and like you said, like, I'm not an expert in this because I read some books.
Right.
I personally experienced a situation where I left a very toxic situation, which helped me a lot. But then I thought that was it. I thought I was done. I was like, oh, I did the right thing. I removed myself. But in this reality that I was going to be exposed to this for the rest of my life. And I didn't realize that. And I got so caught up in it, and I was letting my environment and my stressors, I was waiting for my stress load to go away to feel better. And I thought that it was going to be something that was, that I was protected from, but I unfortunately wasn't. And my children weren't either. And the only choice I had was to change my relationship with the stressor. I was, I had to build a business, figure out where money was going to come from. I was getting really sick all of the time. My kids were getting sick. As a mom of two, my son was suffering from severe mental health issues, and I was unraveling watching him do this. I was getting drugged behind the bus. I was like on a roller coaster ride that I was like, get me off of this ride right now. I don't know what to do, and I don't know how much longer I can do this for because this is not sustainable. But in order for me to go and turn my business into something that was going to be successful, to then be able to support my children, and then to also be able to create an environment that was safe for my children so that they could survive and recover, I had to change what was going on in my system. So obviously working with the proper professionals from a mental health side, but also reintegrating my body's ability to flex on and off and shift out of survival all of the time. I only needed to be in an activated situation when it was required, not all of the time. So I was using these tools to activate those physiological responses and shift them so that they were turning on and off appropriately. For example, I would go to child pickups, and that was terrifying to me at the moment. I would be shaking in my body, shaking, sick to my stomach, like trembling because I was so scared of what was going to happen, but I had no control over the situation. I was going to have to do this forever and ever. So I started activating my vagus nerve with my stimulator every time on my way there. And literally 2 weeks went by. I don't have any response whatsoever. I'm like literally unbothered by it. I'm like, yeah, sometimes it's annoying.
Right.
But I was able to change the physiology.
Response, right? Yeah.
But think about what was going on. Every time I would put myself in that excessive amount, and it would take me however long to come back out of it, if I even did.
And then what's the warpath that was behind you?
Right. The inflammation, the gut issues, the anxiety, the getting sick after. I would always get sick. That was my thing. I would get like a respiratory infection or something like that. So it shows up differently with everybody. But the key to this is like, you have the power to do this with these simple little tools will make the biggest difference for you and how you can show up for yourself, for your kids. I mean, this is such a powerful tool, and it's like a gift for yourself, but also for your family members, your relationships, your professional relationships. But really as a parent is the biggest thing because we don't want those kids to be learning these responses. This is how we change those cycles in our family systems too.
That's really
beautifully
important.
said. Yeah.
I know. Well, Dr. Lauren DeCicco, it has been a two-parter of so much knowledge, and we just thank you so much for joining us. I can't wait. This is part of my New Year's resolutions is activating and relaxing.
And I think everybody listening to part 1 and part 2 today, I hope that you found some great nuggets of not only how to regulate yourself in a highly dysregulated environment that we all operate in, but also that you take a moment and share this with someone. Make sure that people know there's tools, that there's a better life, and that there's lots of bubbles out there for everybody. So go and get yours. And again, thank you, Lauren, for joining us. Absolute pleasure. And please remember, after every breakdown,
don't forget the bubbles. Thank you so much. And follow Dr. Lauren on Instagram and rate, review, subscribe. And thanks for everything. Have a good one.
Cheers.